If you're a DACA recipient, then I would recommend that you watch the following presentation because it may affect your knowledge or your understanding of what type of loan program are available to you to purchase your first house. The FHA 0% down payment loans is something that until recently was not available to DACA recipients. With the recent changes, the DACA recipients are now becoming qualified to use FHA 0% down payment loans. This is a very exciting subject for everybody who either has a DACA recipient in their family or, for one reason or another, they need to use a DACA recipient to obtain a home mortgage. So for us to understand the intricacies of 0% FHA down payment loans for DACA recipients, I invited Katie Andy. And Katie is a loan specialist with Interlink Mortgage. She's a frequent guest on my podcast. This is another episode of Podcast with Elena, and let's dive into our topic. Before we start, I want to introduce Katie. Now, you all know me. Hopefully, if you're watching this video, you probably didn't stumble on it by accident. You probably found me on Facebook, on one of my Facebook groups, or somehow you and I already worked together in the past. I do have a whole collection of videos for people who are trying to qualify for their first home purchase. And Katie is a frequent guest in many of those videos. So Katie, could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Elena, and thank you for having me on again. I am Katie Andy with Interlink Mortgage, and I've been in the industry for 22 years and helping people with their first-time purchases, their second homes, and their dream homes, as well as investment properties. So anything I can do to help people achieve that dream of American home ownership, that's what I look to do on a daily basis.
Speaking of achieving the dream of home ownership, tell us more about the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, and 0% down loans for FHA and everything that they need to know, because many of them may not be familiar.
Okay, so FHA is Federal Housing Administration, and they've been around since I think like the late 70s, somewhere in there. Don't get me, quoting history dates, but basically FHA was generated. It's a government insured loan, and it's a 3.5% down payment. And what can make it zero out of pocket is actually it can be paired with government down payment assistance programs that cover the 3.5% down payment plus some of the buyer's closing costs and prepaids. So it's not that the down payment's zero, but the down payment assistance programs can cover that down payment. So I want to clarify that. But one of the great things about FHA, because it is a government insured program, is that it is the most lenient and qualifying as far as credit, debt to income ratios. For instance, on a regular FHA loan, if a buyer has their own 3.5%, we can go down to a 580 credit score as long as we can get an automated approval. Buyers who are looking for that zero out of pocket, that 3.5% down, but paired with a down payment assistance, either through Texas State Affordable Housing Commission or Southeast Texas Housing or Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, or if you're not in Texas, whatever state specific program you may have for down payment assistance, those programs can be paired with the FHA loan to cover the down payment. And a lot of them have down payment assistance options up to 5%, which would cover the 3.5% down plus some of the closing costs and prepaids. And then seller is allowed to help with closing concessions up to 6%. So it really can be structured for zero out of pocket if you have the right seller and the right buyer and the right program. So those programs require right now at least a 640 mid-score. And at a 640 mid-score, the maximum debt to income ratio that a buyer can have is 45%. If their credit score is over 700, then we can go up to a 55% debt to income ratio with an automated approval. There are there's a risk assessment we do fill out on any of the down payment assistance programs, and it's point-based. So they also have to pass that point-based risk assessment, but it's a really great product for buyers who maybe have limited income and limited assets to still achieve home ownership. So there are purchasing price limits on it. And then there's also maximum household income limits on it. So it is geared towards your low to moderate income households. But for Dallas area, Dallas and Tarrant County and Collin County, our surrounding areas, I mean, I think it's around 95,000, to 98,000, depending on which county you're in. So, and that's all based off of area median income. So that's a lot of room, for even a 1 to 2 household income family to still be able to qualify for down payment assistance. You also don't necessarily have to be a first-time home buyer. As long as you haven't owned a home, in the last 3 years, you typically qualify as a first-time home buyer. But those restrictions have actually been lifted from some of these programs to where even if you've owned a home, you could still benefit from using this program to help you get into another house. The buyers do have to meet income guidelines, and you do have to meet the debt to income ratio guidelines and traditional FHA. I mean, we've got to have 2 years employment history. You need to, our income qualifications are still going to be the same just as with any other loan. But one of the great things that we have recently found out as of January 19th is that our DACA recipients can now use the down payment assistance program paired with FHA. So they still have to establish that they have legal right to work in the U.S. with a completed I-797 form showing their approved DACA status. And they do have to have their employment authorization document or their work visa card with code C33. But as long as they have these 2 items and they meet the traditional, employment income asset requirements and credit score requirements, we absolutely can provide this program to DACA recipients. So it's really opened up that great product for them.
How would they get started on, because many of them did not have a path, they could not apply for this program before. So maybe they're not familiar. How did they apply to receive this benefit?
So you would just find a lender who does these, right? Who does the down payment assistance programs and works with FHA. Not all lenders do, but Interlink Mortgage is one. We do offer it. And so it would be available to you. You would just go to my website, fill out the application. And then once you fill out the application, it opens up a secure toolbox where you can upload your supporting documentation. So what we're looking for is the most recent 30 days pay stubs, your last 2 years W-2 forms, tax returns, your last 2 months bank statement, your copy of your driver's license, your social security card, and of course with DACA, the I-797 and your employment authorization document with that special code.
Okay, and how much, a lot of them ask me, how much do you think I could qualify for?
So depending on what your income is, right, and what your debt load is, it's going to depend. FHA does have loan limits. And I think for Texas, I think that it's, and I should know this off the top of my head, but they've just changed it. But
I think it's
a little
5
over,
I think it's 5 or 7, no?
No, that's on conventional conforming.
Okay.
FHA, I want to say it's at 484. So
Okay.
I'll look that up and make sure I have that in my brain for our next video. They change it annually, but they did just increase it. And for our area, and now this could be different in different parts of Texas because it's county based. So like the loan limit in Austin is different than the loan limit in Houston and is different than the loan limit in Dallas. So, definitely check with your lender to get the specific loan limit for your area. And then also keeping in mind that on the down payment assistance program, they each have purchase price limits too that are actually lower than the regular FHA loan limit.
So just because FHA says 480 something doesn't mean that that's your true limit. There might be another.
Right, because typically whenever I checked it last, it was around 350 is the max you can get on a down payment assistance loan. And I can check that. Those change annually too, and they change with each program. So TSHAC, TDHCA, and SEF all have purchase price limits based off of county, as well as income limits based off of household size and based off of county that you're buying in. So again, you just want to talk to your loan officer and find out what's available for your specific scenario with where you live.
But that would be mostly dependent, number one, on the loan limits imposed by the program, but two, by your purchasing power derived from your debt to income ratio.
Correct. Yeah, because you're still going to have to meet normal qualifying requirements on FHA financing.
Okay, wonderful. Are there any specifically for DACA approval, for DACA applicants? Do you foresee anything extra that they would need to do during the approval and underwriting?
As
To,
long as they have their 2-year employment history and they have that I-797 and their employment authorization doc with the special code, that C-33, then they're going to be handled just like a regular buyer.
so you don't see any bumpy rides for them?
Nope, those are just the 2 additional conditions. I mean, the only thing that I could see is depending on, obviously they've got to have a social security number, and so I don't know on some of the DACA recipients if they've gotten that yet. You do have to have a valid social. As far as the employment history, just like with any FHA loan, if you have a student who's been, let's say, a full-time student getting their teaching degree, we can use their college transcripts in lieu of a 2-year employment history.
Oh, really?
But they just have to be on their new job in their field for 6 months. But that would allow us to not have to have 2 years of work history. We can use the higher education in lieu of W-2s as part of their work history if they were a full-time student. So those are some things, and that's on any FHA loan, but especially with your DACA recipients that maybe are getting their education and getting their degrees and stuff, that could help if they haven't been able to get just regular employment yet.
Well, there are more to the potential approval and underwriting issue than we can cover in this video, right? We had another video that we made recently that's called Do's and Do Nots for mortgage applicants. It's a video that's probably about an hour long. You don't need to watch the whole video to get the main points across, but do watch that video before, whether you're a DACA recipient or not. Make sure to watch that video if you're planning to buy a house within the next 12 months. That will help you tremendously not to make some mistakes that could accidentally delay your ability to purchase a loan, DACA loan, or DACA status notwithstanding. With that said, anything else that we want to, I would just say, if you're a DACA recipient, I encourage you, even if you currently don't know, a lot of people say, I don't know if I can afford to buy a house. And I'm like, well, you don't, because you're not a mortgage lender. You need to speak with a mortgage lender to find out if you can buy a house and how much of a house you can buy. It's not something that you decide. So
absolutely. If they have questions, give me a call. My number's there, 817-807-5367, and my email's there. So any questions you have, even if it's a matter of figuring out when you're ready, I'm happy to answer and help you get on that path towards homeownership.
Question to you, what if their parents, just a random question popped into my head. What if this is a DACA recipient with a parent that's not a citizen? Can that parent still give gift money toward closing?
Yeah, so the parent can give gift money, but they couldn't co-sign.
They just couldn't co-sign, but they could still give a gift money, even if they don't have a social security or they don't.
Yeah, because on gift money, we just have to have evidence that the donor has the money in their bank account for the last 30 days documented with a 30-day bank statement. And we have to document the relationship, which is done through the FHA gift letter, which is property specific. So we would provide that to them once they're on contract. And then, but yeah, absolutely. Mom and dad do not have to be U.S. citizens or legal residents or any of that. As long as they've got a bank account and the money's in there and we can document it's theirs to give, then they can absolutely get a gift.
With that said, that just, even if you don't fully grasp what we just said, if you're a DACA recipient or if you know somebody who's a DACA recipient and you're just watching it out of curiosity, please forward them this video. Make sure that they do apply with a loan specialist like Katie to find out where they stand as far as their eligibility for FHA financing in the first place, and then how much they could qualify for. This is all for today. My name is Elena Garrett, and I am a realtor with Keller Williams Central 75 here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. This has been a Podcast with Elena episode, and I'll see you all at the next video. Thank you.